Hey there, YouTube family. Welcome back to our channel where we share incredible true stories of courage, resilience, and the triumph of the human spirit. Today, we have an extraordinary story that will leave you in awe. This is the tale of the Andes survivors, a group of young men who endured unimaginable hardships after their plane crashed in the Andes Mountains. Let's dive into their unforgettable journey. A small Fairchild aircraft is shown taking off on a clear day in October 1972. The Uruguayan rugby team, together with their friends and relatives, are on board. A group of 45 people, mostly in their late teens and early 20s, were on board to play an exhibition in Chile. The passengers are in high spirits, laughing and chatting as the plane soars into the sky, heading from Montevideo to Santiago. When he awoke, almost 48 hours had passed. It was Friday, October 13th, 1972, and the Uruguayan Air Force Fairchild F-227 had crashed into a glacial valley high in the Andes. The tail was missing, cut away from the rest of the fuselage by the right wing, which had sheared off after hitting the mountainside. The aftermath was chaotic, with debris scattered and injured passengers lying in the snow. 7 of those on board had been sucked out of the fuselage before the plane had crashed. 4 more, including the pilot and Parrado's mother, were killed upon impact, and by the time Parrado regained consciousness, a further 5 had also perished, including the co-pilot and Parrado's friend Abel. There were now 29 survivors, alone in the bitter cold of the Andes, with no way of contacting the outside world, and their plane's white fuselage all but invisible in the snow to any would-be rescuers that passed overhead. The group assessed their situation, realized they are far from help, with limited food and shelter. The survivors, led by Nando Parrado and Roberto Canessa, organized themselves to ration food and found ways to stay warm. They used pieces of the wreckage to create a makeshift shelter. They piled up airplane seats to create shelter in the broken fuselage, where they huddled day and night. They used aluminum from the seat backs to warm up snow and provided a steady stream of drinking water. But their rations were woefully inadequate. The harsh weather and freezing temperatures tested their endurance. Parrado later wrote, "One morning, he found himself cradling a single chocolate-covered peanut. On the first day, I slowly sucked the chocolate off the peanut. On the second day, I sucked gently on the peanut for hours, allowing myself only a tiny nibble now and then. I did the same on the third day, and when I finally nibbled the peanut down to nothing, there was no food left at all." In the high altitude of the Andes, it was a heart-wrenching decision. They decided to survive by consuming the bodies of their deceased friends and family. They had only one choice. Using a shard of glass, some of the survivors sliced thin slices from the buttocks of one of the corpses, and silently they began to eat. The scene was somber, showing the group's internal struggle and anguish over this choice. Some resisted taking that fateful step for as long as they could, clinging to hope that they would be rescued. The survivors maintained hope by creating signals and markers in the snow, attempting to attract any passing aircraft. They dealt with avalanches, severe weather, and injuries. But then they found a transistor radio, and a small group listened intently as a Chilean news bulletin announced that official search efforts had ended. "Hey, boys!" one of them shouted to the rest of the survivors. "There's good news! They've called off the search." "Why the hell is that good news?" yelled one in response. "Because it means we're going to get out of here on our own." On the 18th day, disaster struck. An avalanche all but buried the fuselage. Realizing that rescue may never come, Nando Parrado and Roberto Canessa decide to trek across the mountains to find help. They prepare for the journey with the limited supplies they have, saying emotional goodbyes to their companions. It seemed an impossible task. None of them were mountaineers. All were horribly weak, and they had no suitable clothing or equipment. But there was no alternative. They fashioned a sled, sewed together material for a sleeping bag, and selected those who would make the march. After weeks of preparation and aborted efforts, the group, initially 3, but then 2 to save resources, set off to the west in the direction of Chile. Fighting cold and crippling altitude sickness, they somehow ascended the nearest peak, all 15,000 feet of it, and surveyed the surroundings. They saw little but more mountains and a valley that wound through them. Roberto Canessa said to Parrado, "We have been through so much. Now let's go die together." They made their way down the other side of the mountain in desperation and uncertainty, stumbling along the glacier below. Day after day, their strength grew weaker as they attempted to push themselves forward. And finally, on December 18th, they heard rushing water. They started following what appeared to be the mouth of a river. The following day, they came across evidence of human habitation: a horseshoe, cow manure, a herd of cows, a rusted soup can, and at last, on December 20th in the evening, a guy riding a horse over the river. They started following what appeared to be the mouth of a river. They were soon being served hot food in a hut when another man on horseback showed up later that morning, this time on their side of the river. Along with a group of reporters arrived were the Chilean mounted police. Rescue helicopters touched down, and even though Parrado's account of climbing and descending the mountain was obviously false, their crews nevertheless embarked on a search for the plane with him. The remaining survivors rescued and reunited with their families. It was a tearful reunion. They got medical treatment, and they gradually recovered. The group reflected on their ordeal. They were grateful for their second chance at life. Thank you so much for watching our video on the extraordinary survival story. Your support and interest in these incredible tales of resilience mean the world to us. If you found this story inspiring, please give us a thumbs up and share it with others who might need a dose of courage and hope. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on more amazing survival stories and uplifting content. We appreciate each and every one of you for joining us on this journey. Stay strong, stay hopeful, and remember, the human spirit is truly unbreakable. Thank you, and we'll see you in the next video.